Anderson Cooper, AC 360, CNN weeknights 10 Eastern.
First of all, we're trying to do three different things, right? Say we're going to withdraw from Iraq, but we're going to surge into Afghanistan, but we're going to withdraw from there too, but then we're going to take care of folks here at home. I want to pick up, though, on this point that Ari makes about the surge, because it is staggering to me. First off, the surge was only necessary because President Bush, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld went to war with too few troops because they wanted to prove General Shinseki, the Army Chief of Staff, wrong. That's why we needed it in the first place. Second, it could have never succeeded without the preceding Sunni awakening. Iraqis themselves had to decide. It wasn't that Americans surged and then that cured it. It was the Sunni awakening. But I'll make a deal with President Bush. We'll give you all the credit for the surge if you take half of the blame for the lies that got us into this war. By which I mean, Iraq
Paul,
isn't. Excuse me, Ari. By which I mean, Ari
right.
himself saying Iraq was an imminent threat to America. By which the President of the United States saying there was a mushroom cloud that could become the smoking gun. By which I mean the threat of unmanned aerial drones that Saddam supposedly had that were going to come and gas America. The connections that they alleged, which were false, between Al Qaeda and Saddam's regime. So, there was so much that they got wrong about this. Some of it just was botched and some of it was deeply dishonest.
And,
the notion that somehow
later,
George Bush is owed any moment of grace here
intelligence.
is appalling to the history.
Neither you nor anybody else, including your old boss, Bill Clinton, challenged George Bush when he said that, because the intelligence that they all saw too led them to the same conclusion. So I think 7 years later,
they didn't see all the
lie issue.
First off, they didn't see all the intelligence because you guys were
cherry picking into anymore. This is the night that President Obama said, "Thanks to the military, our troops are coming home." I was gracious enough to praise President Obama for saying that it's an appropriate moment for our country to bring them home and to welcome them home. But for you to say that President Bush lied about this, Paul, that is exactly the type of divisiveness we're trying to move beyond in this country, when you know as well as I do, he followed the intelligence that he was given by the CIA.
No, he manipulated and cherry-picked the intelligence, Ari, as did Mr. Cheney, as did Mr. Rumsfeld. And that's why 4,427 Americans are
There's
dead.
nothing to cherry-pick. That's everything we needed to know.
When Dick Cheney said, as he did, that Saddam has long established ties with Al Qaeda, that the evidence was overwhelming, the Iraq Study Group said no, that wasn't true.
The 911 Commission report said Saddam had ties to Al Qaeda. It's in the 911 Commission report. It said they weren't operational. And our point of view was never let them become operational.
This is the thing. He was no threat to America. Ari himself.
Now you're changing your tune because you're recognizing the 911 Commission report agreed with what President Bush said.
They said there were no operational links. There were none.
That's correct. There were none. And we didn't want them to become them.
Well, we don't want Canada to have operational links either. How about we go have Operation Canadian Freedom? Now, look, this was from the beginning. It was a war of choice. It was Mr. Bush's choice, and it was a tragic choice. 4,427 Americans are dead. 35,000 Americans are wounded, plus those suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, plus those suffering from traumatic brain injury. This has been a catastrophe for America, a catastrophe for our armed services who served with such heroism. And for Mr. Fleischer to sit here and expect a pat on the back for his old boss, George W. Bush, it is appalling. It is, as we would say in Texas, I guess, it's chutzpah.
And Paul Begala's view of the world, we'd all be better off and safer off if Saddam Hussein was still running Iraq.
And if those 4,427 Americans were alive.
Paul, every time anybody loses their lives in the military, our nation suffers for it. Any one individual anywhere. But the point is, we now have a new Iraq, an Iraq that has a chance to become a bastion of freedom and hopefully an Iraq that can change the Arab Middle East so it's a more peaceful area where wars don't start. That's what Iraq now gives us a chance to do. And that's why I hope now with the 50,000 remaining troops, we will be successful and that we don't lose the peace in Iraq, which is now what this is about.
And we have a diminished America, a depleted America. We have a divided America. And we have, tragically, military cemeteries that are filling up. And that is a hell of a price to pay to get rid of a guy who was no threat to America.
No threat to America.
Zero.